All right, boom, live episode number 12, box to box. Guys, thanks again for joining in. Appreciate it. My name's Jose. You guys know me, mainstay on the show. We also have our mainstay hosts, Andre, Alina. Alina in the green of Italy, I think. Is it
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yep.
Sorry, you guys
Uh,
couldn't see the logo, but yes, that's what I'm
and who's on the
wearing.
back?
Oh God, I don't think we should go into that.
Oh, I want to see now.
It's a mobile.
Oh
Cheeto.
no. Oh no.
Cheeto,
Cheeto.
the hero
Exactly.
himself. Cheeto, the hero.
Hero, my guy.
Exactly. So we got Alina on the show. Andre in the maroon of Leeds. I like it. Not the greatest
Leeds.
result today, but it's still a hell of a game. 3-2.
Dude, it's
Yeah.
so unfortunate, man. We play well, and then we just don't get results. But I believe in Jesse Marsh. He'll turn around. We'll see.
Yeah, and so does everybody in America, man. So you got a whole nation
We're
behind
America's
you.
team.
Guys, episode number 12. If you haven't already, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment below. All of those things are very much appreciated. And guys, as usual, box to box brought to you by GOLZtv. GOLZtv has officially kicked off in soft launch mode. Been live for a couple weeks now. If you haven't checked it out already, GOLZ.tv, GOLZ.tv, your home for free, unlimited footy content. All right, let's get to it. We have a special guest on today. So pumped for this. Guys, round of applause. Everybody welcome in Aazam Khan from Aazam's Footy Show. Everybody say hey.
Oh my God.
Love having you on. I've been following your TikTok show for a little bit now, man. I didn't even know you streamed on Twitch until I kind of started diving a little bit deeper into your content.
Yeah.
But Aazam, I'm so glad you're here, man. Like
I'm glad to be
myself, you are an Arsenal and a Barca fan. I feel like we're a special breed. Last few years haven't been that great for us, but we're still here. We're still loud and proud. Welcome to the show, man. How you feeling?
Happy to be here. I'm glad. I'm a little upset with the draw earlier today, but hopefully Barca can lift my spirits in a little bit. But I'm always excited to chat football, so I'm happy to be here.
Awesome, man. Well, we're happy that you're here. We're good. And look, in terms of chatting football, a little bit different format for the show today. For those who've been following Box to Box so far, we typically cover a wide range of topics footy-wise, right? Everything from MLS to European football to La Liga to Liga MX, everything in between, right? We talk a lot about just the global results and what's going on. Today, a little bit of a pivot, mainly because we're this close to the World Cup getting here, right? Less than 30 days, less than a month away. I'm so excited. But in lieu of that, we want to make sure that we offer some kind of context around what to expect. I personally believe this is going to be one of the most exciting World Cups we've seen in our lifetime. A lot of opportunity for upsets all the way across the board. And we're going to do, just to kind of get everybody ready and warmed up for the tournament that's coming, predictions, talking about the groups, who we think is going to get out of them, who we think is going to be upset and going home early, everything in between. We're going to take it 2 groups at a time every week between now and the World Cup. And so today, starting with groups A and B, let's jump right into it. Let's start with Group A, of course, right? We'll kind of just go phonetically here. We have, just jump right in, guys, if you aren't familiar with how the schedule's been laid out or who's in what group. Group A is comprised of Qatar, Ecuador, Senegal, and the Netherlands. Netherlands obviously being what I think most people consider to be the favorite coming out of that group. I think if you were basing it solely off of FIFA rankings, which probably isn't the smartest thing to do, at least in my opinion, you would probably assume the Netherlands goes through. But they have more than a few occasions upset their fan base in the past. So just to kind of jump right in, I think just before talking about how we feel like these guys could place, let's just really quickly talk about what we're excited about with this group, right? Whether that be players, maybe some of these specific matchups that are coming first. I think the Netherlands is the easiest one to kind of kick things off with, so let's do it. They are ranked 8th in the world by FIFA at this moment. Who do we think coming out of the Netherlands is going to be their tried and true guy? I think that, when I say tried and true guy, I'm really referring to the playmaker, that the one who's going to kind of take Netherlands over the top. Over the last few years, whether it's under Van Gaal or Koeman or anybody in between, they've kind of been a little bit lackluster. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I don't know if it's just as straightforward as saying Netherlands is going to flat out win this group. But who knows? Maybe I'm not paying attention enough. So let's start with Andre here. Andre, when you think about this group, Netherlands coming in as widely being ranked number 1 to take the top of this group.
Yep.
Is there someone on this roster that you think needs to stand out and take this team forward? There are a lot of players that for their club teams just haven't been shining. I think of guys like Memphis Depay.
Yep.
I think of guys like Frankie de Jong who haven't been consistent enough in their playing time for Barcelona.
Yep.
Should everybody just automatically assume that Netherlands is going to take this thing?
No, definitely not, man. And that was going to be my first hot take right there. the rankings, like you said at the beginning, you got to take it with a grain of salt, man. I mean, we've seen it in multiple World Cups, right? When you think about South Africa, for example, nobody expected them to make noise when they hosted. Every time you have a host nation, you have to put a little bit of credit behind them because they're at home. I mean, simple as that, right? It doesn't matter what the talent looks like. But going back to your question about Netherlands, I think there's a couple guys in my book, and I've actually been following Netherlands closely because they missed out last World Cup, and it's one of those teams that you like have to have in the World Cup. Memphis Depay, you already mentioned him. I think this is going to be his kind of time to shine, dude. I mean, it's been coming, right?
What's he going to do though, realistically? Because he hasn't touched the field more than like twice for Barcelona, right?
But,
so what can we expect out of him?
Every time he plays for Holland, though, he looks like a completely different player. It's like he looks like Dennis Bergkamp. Like he just turns into a legend. So he's one of them that I'm looking at, and the other one that's been kind of on the back burner, but he really lit it up for Tottenham a couple years ago was Steven Bergwijn.
Yeah.
So Bergwijn is a guy. He is. I'm telling you, he is a game changer. He's one of those dudes that like you're tied 1-1, 80th minute, and you need somebody to make something happen out of nowhere. Send the ball to the guy out wing. So I think those two guys need to step up. If they don't, then it's going to be very difficult because then you start looking at, guys like, for example, Gakpo, who is pretty solid, obviously really young though, right? And then you start looking at other talent that like needs to step up. I just don't see it. Like Luke de Jong is too old now. Like he's just not going to be the guy that's going to play full 90 against teams like Senegal, Ecuador, or Qatar. So it's going to be really difficult. If those two guys don't show up, I think Holland is going to be, in a rude awakening.
And it's kind of worrying. I think that I agree with you on the sense that the Dutch national team really needs almost stellar performances from specific players on the roster for them to do well, which is kind of concerning, right? I think Aazam can agree with me in the sense that when we look at Arsenal, it's so great to see that there's so many different goal scorers that hit the score sheet week in and week out. It's great to not feel like we're just solely relying upon key performances from one player, but that's how Netherlands kind of feels right now, that they're going to need the Netherlands version of Memphis as opposed to the Barcelona version of 100%. Memphis. They're going to need probably Frankie de Jong to continue seeing the playing time that maybe we're hopefully going to see from now through the World Cup. I know Xavi is benching Busquets in favor of de Jong. Aazam, with him, if de Jong gets more of a pivot role at Barca, and let's say he sees this out between now and the World Cup coming, do we feel really good about this midfield?
Yeah, I think de Jong is the key to that midfield. I think with Barca, if he gets those minutes, I think he can come in good form, and his progressive ball carrying is key to this team, especially with Gini Wijnaldum being out, I think, injured. Frankie de Jong is going to have to take a big creative role as well, whether he plays in the pivot, whether he plays in that interior role. I think him progressing the ball into the final third is going to be key to this Netherlands team getting some results in the group.
Yeah. And look, I think when we think about who they're playing first, I guess if there is a tough match to get out of the way, it is for them Senegal, right? That's going to be their biggest competition in the group, with the likes of Sadio Mane leading that front line. And that's their first matchup. We're going to see what Netherlands looks like hot and fast coming into this World Cup. They play on the 21st, and that's their first group stage game. So again, guys, for those who aren't familiar with the rankings and how everybody's stacking up, top 10 in the world, Netherlands at 8, Senegal a little bit further back at 18. Huge drop off from there. Ecuador being 44th and Qatar being 50th. Speaking of Qatar, every time there's a World Cup that, anytime there's a World Cup, you talk about the host nation and how much of a positive it is for them being the host nation, and how that can maybe boost their performances. But being 50th is very, very difficult coming into a World Cup that's this competitive, where I feel like there are legitimate superstars on every single nation.
Yeah.
Do we feel like Qatar is going to do anything? I mean, Alina, are you expecting any kind of performance out of Qatar that allows them to get past the group stages?
I think if there is ever a time where they can go into the next round, this is their World Cup for them, because they're the host nation. Granted, I don't really know many of their players, so I cannot really comment on that. I don't know how good their squad is. I don't know.
That's most of us, by the way.
I think we'll all learn.
I'm not sure how the star players are, but I do think coming into the World Cup, I think they have a very good chance to challenge for that second spot. Honestly.
Yeah. I mean,
just because of the host boost.
Yeah. I wonder how different, because I think when I think about how far any host nation has gone, right, in our lifetimes, what's the furthest we've seen any host nation really go that was a strong underdog, right?
South
I'm
Korea.
thinking,
South
right,
Korea.
the 02 World Cup, was that probably the furthest that we saw? Was it a semifinal
Yeah,
appearance?
they went to the
Yep.
semifinal. They beat Turkey and they beat Spain. And
With some dubious refereeing.
Yeah,
on
and I
the
was
way
going to say
there.
that's
I think
very
VAR would not have allowed it. But that being said, 20 years
Yeah.
ago, you take your chances.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
I'd say South Korea.
is that possible this time around? VAR will be implemented,
I
so
know.
maybe it's harder than it's ever been for a host country. But is there a glimmer of hope? Can we offer that layer of optimism to anybody who might be looking for Qatar to do something?
I mean, I think they've got some good results in like recent international fixtures. I know that they've invested a lot of money, almost in recruiting foreign players into their team as well. So, they have a key eye on not just, being the host nation, but on performance as well. And I've seen them play just in highlights. I can't tell you I've ever sat down and been like, oh, Qatar's playing. I got to, get the TV on. But I've seen some highlights of them and, they do have some liquid football. Maybe they're taking some, Xavi-esque Al-Sadd, play style into their team. Because he was, he had a big Qatari contingent in his team. But, normally with these underdog host nations, there's somewhat of a feel-good factor around them. Like South Africa, I mean, when Shabalala's ball hit the net, I think everyone cheered,
The vuvuzelas were in full effect.
Yeah.
Except for the Mexican fans.
Yeah. But with Qatar, they're the host nation, but they're also a very controversial host nation. So I don't know if that, overwhelming support for this plucky underdog host nation is going to be as present with them in this World Cup. But at the same time, I know that their fans are amped for it. Some of these stadiums are going to be packed, and most of the Middle East is going to be backing them as well. So there is that sense, but I don't know. I'm not very bullish on Qatar's prospects, to be honest.
Does the environment give Qatar a leg up? I don't know what it's like weather-wise in Qatar at this time of the year. I know that we had to play it in the middle of the year versus the summer because it would have been literally like just unhuman-like conditions to play, competitively and make sure that we had a tried and true, winner as far as competitive integrity being maintained. So does that give them an advantage? Having a strong understanding of the environment and what it's going to do for, their bodies and their performances. I mean, is that even strong enough here?
I don't think so personally, just because I know that in this wintertime, it's actually pretty mild. It's going to be like, from what I've heard from Fahrenheit, like 70s, so it won't be, it won't be super hot, but obviously you never know. It could be some hot days. And if that's the case, that definitely could be an advantage for them. But again, there's a lot of countries coming from around the world as well. I think Senegal might be used to some heat as well. I'm not sure, to be honest, though. Geography's been my worst subject of all time. So, but
whether it's the African nations or it's like maybe I would say the countries that are closer to the equator, right? They probably do have a little more experience dealing with those kinds of temperatures and that kind of environment. But it's something to note, because I think at the end of the day, any advantage that Qatar can get, whether it's environmental, whether it's mental, anything else in between, they want to exploit that as much as they possibly can. When you're 50th going up against a top 10 team in the world, that's all you can really do, right? Is put everything you have into one game. So we'll see. Let's do some predictions, though. I think, going round table here, understanding how we think this could all play out. Again, me and Andre talked about this, guys, on the show probably at least a few different times. We firmly believe, and Aazam, I think maybe you're probably in this line of thought as well. We firmly believe this is going to be the World Cup that I think is most reflective of modern football, in the sense that every country has its own superstars now. It's not like back in the day when, Iran had nobody you've ever heard of. Algeria had nobody you've ever heard of. And these smaller countries, Cameroon had nobody ever heard of, minus like Samuel Eto'o back in the day. Like now, everyone's got, for the most part, tried and true names on their roster. So I think that the opportunity for upsets has never existed more than in this World Cup.
Yes.
So with that said, kind of going round table here, understanding who's picking who to slot in where. I think Group A might be a little bit of a layup in terms of, maybe the predictions. They'll get spicier, I think, as the groups kind of start to work towards, Group G and Group H. But for now, let's try and predict where we think these teams can line up here. So, and let's try to, give Qatar benefit of the doubt. They're ranked 50th, but, we're going to try and see if we can, if there's any kind of opportunity for upset here. But let's start with Alina, ladies first. Any major upsets here? Who do you think's finishing first, and how does that play out for the rest of the group? 1 through 4. What's your what's your prediction?
I do think that Netherlands will finish first, but I'm kind of excited to see how many handballs De Ligt is going to cause. So that's going to be hilarious.
You miss him at Juve, don't lie.
Yes, you can tell how much I miss him. Very deeply. But for a second, I'm just going to go ahead and say Qatar, because why not?
Ooh,
why not?
Spicy.
I think
Seriously?
Yeah, why not? I think it'll be close.
Fuck it, yeah. Let's do it. Let's let's throw it all out there right now. Go ahead. Yeah. So give me your 1 through 4. Who are the 2 teams that make it out of the groups, and who are the 2 teams that get eliminated and go home?
Netherlands in first place, Qatar second, Senegal third, Ecuador fourth.
Sam, so imagine Mane going home early after the African Cup of Nations run they had. Man, it could be worse. It could be Salah just not even going to the World Cup.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
Dealing with everything he dealt with last season, which was one of the worst seasons of all time. All right, Aazam, our guest, give me something here, man. What do you think of what the 2 teams to go through are?
I think my top 2, I'm in between 2 teams. I think Netherlands could finish first. I don't want to bet against them. I think that they're, I think Gakpo is surging at a good time. He's super, dynamic winger, and they've looked good in the past few performances. But for second, I'm going Ecuador. I think we were talking about FIFA rankings and the fact that, they're not to be trusted very well. And I think 44th is low for Ecuador. I think honestly, right now for me, they're the 3rd best team in South America. I think they have really good players. They've got, Gonzalo Plata, they got Estupinian, Moises Caicedo at Brighton's killing
Caicedo is highly underrated. It's crazy.
Yes, incredibly underrated, and they will get in your face. They are a high-pressing team. They've got athleticism, and I think they're going to shock a lot of people this
they're
World
dynamic.
Cup, so.
They're very dynamic.
They are.
So. On that thread, and just maybe this is like a little bit of a side tangent. It's kind of crazy when I hear other predictions, and I feel like South American teams are so underrated. And we've even heard players like Mbappe talk about why he thinks that European teams just have this giant leg up because they play against, Montenegro and Serbia and Latvia and again all these other small countries.
Vatican City,
I think it's significantly harder to go to Bolivia and play on dirt and get a result during qualifying, right? Or any of those small scrappy nations in South America. I feel South America is strongly underrated, not just by FIFA rankings, but by people as a whole.
Yep.
Do you think, Aazam, that we're going to see a fair amount of South American teams kind of make some waves in this World Cup?
I think I like, obviously, Argentina, Brazil, and I like Ecuador's chances. Those are the 3 teams that I think, will do well. I think, again, if the fields are quality, South American teams will shock a lot of people because we're used to seeing them sometimes in these, fields in South America that aren't as, pristine, to say the least.
In the trenches.
But if you qualify for the World Cup from South America, you've gone through a gauntlet. These are teams that already have formative experiences, in my opinion, of having to grind out results. So, and that plays a big role in these, World Cup games. I know it's the group stage. It's not necessarily knockout games, but we know how the World Cup goes. You lose one group stage game and you're already in trouble. They might as well be for teams like Ecuador and any group, any team in this group. So I'm bullish on their prospects, but, Uruguay, I think they're having some injuries. I don't know if they haven't impressed me as much when I've watched them recently, but I like Ecuador. I do.
I love it. Andre, give me yours, bro.
All right. I'm gonna go with. You guys are gonna hate this, but I think Senegal win the group. I think Ecuador advance, and I think Holland goes home.
Bro, same for me. Okay, I'm not gonna get mine. Same, 100%. I actually think the Dutch national team will be the flashiest team in terms of their kit.
Yeah,
with the least flashy play.
Agreed.
Imaginable. I really think that just because there's too many players that are key for that roster that just don't have a rhythm because they don't have minutes. It's just so tough. Now, things could change between now and then. We talked about it before. I think if Frankie's so pivotal to that team, if he does dethrone Busquets on Barca and takes over not even just the pivot role, but more of a consistent role in that midfield, he will be in a nice rhythm heading into that tournament. But if not, and Memphis has been non-existent since Lewandowski's come into the fold. Yeah. So those 50 plus or almost 60 goals that he scored for the Netherlands almost become a non-factor because I don't know what his form will look like heading into the tournament. So I don't know. And guys like Gakpo and Bergwijn are all, great young talents that are dynamic and athletic, but I don't know what to expect. It's it's kind of hit or miss until we actually see them on tournament day. So
well, and it's not even just we're talking about like from the midfield up. I mean, if you look at the defense, right? Like, has Virgil been the
he's
best
out of
version
form,
of
in my
himself?
opinion.
No.
I mean, we saw him this past weekend, right? I mean, I'm granted it was moving forward, and he missed some real opportunities against Forest to like actually get the goal that Liverpool needed. But he's still, in my opinion, everybody on Liverpool roster is just completely out of form.
I thought Van Dijk. Sorry,
no, go ahead.
I thought Van Dijk did play lights out against City. I thought he had a phenomenal game there. And I think that for him in Liverpool, we're seeing some like almost complacency at times. Yeah. But then you bring him into a City game, and he was coming out. He wasn't trying to just defend with his aura and a force field around him. He was trying to make tackles. Yeah. And this is his first World Cup. I think this is his first major tournament. So I think we could see him almost rejuvenated as well, because he's got all the motivation to, play his best football, I think.
And that's so is Nations League not a major tournament?
We'll get into that later, maybe.
I don't want to piss anybody off. It's fine. We're good. But anyway, Andre,
you just don't know what version you're going to get out of him.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
He's been too inconsistent for me in the last season or so. So it's tough. The only player that I can think of too, who could be pivotal depending on the formation that they play, is Dumfries, outside back. He has some flashes. I know, Alina, you've seen him at Inter, and then Gozens. Those two guys could probably step up. But again, to Joey's point, like, they're too young. They're inexperienced. When they get pushed against the wall, what are they going to do? How are they going to get out of trouble? It's just a lot to ask out of a very young team, in my opinion.
And that's not a bad thing, right? I think most people here, young or inexperienced. I mean, Arsenal's team, no matter what anybody says, is still very much a young and technically inexperienced team. While they have a great manager and they have a great system and identity, they still have yet to experience certain moments that will make any Arsenal fan feel like they have an absolute top team at this moment. And that's just part of it. Netherlands could come out with this young, hungry team and just surprise everybody. But what we've seen over the last year and a half, 2 years, is that they've been pretty reliant upon the same guys kind of week in, or I would say month in and month out. And those players have had those rich runs of form, and now they're lacking a little bit of that rhythm. So we'll see, but I'm right in line with Andre. I do think Senegal and Ecuador, for me, would be my picks, just because I don't know what to expect from the Netherlands. But we'll see. Before we go on to Group B, is there someone that we feel, not necessarily from any particular team, but just the group as a whole, who do you think comes out as maybe a top scorer, someone that we feel is going to just come out? I remember back watching the 06 World Cup, before Arjen Robben was this giant name, right? And then he lights it up, and he just becomes a namestay for everybody from the lens of the Dutch national team. Wesley Sneijder, kind of some of the same thing, but he was already pretty well known. But nonetheless, right, there's so many players that make their name in this tournament. Do you see somebody coming out as an epic fashion from this group?
I'm gonna obviously we know his name, but I think this is a very massive opportunity for Sadio Mane to accentuate a very good season that he had. Obviously, with the move to Bayern, things changed a little bit, but I mean, he was in the run for Ballon d'Or before. Obviously, they lost to Real Madrid. But I think Sadio Mane has something to prove this time around, in my opinion.
I think he does too, 100%. I'm actually going to be a little bit, on the side of the Netherlands. We talked about Gakpo already. I do think someone that dynamic, someone linked to as many clubs as he's been linked to, especially recently. And look, even against Arsenal recently, PSV Arsenal in the Europa League, I think he's ready for that step up. I think he's ready to prove that he's ready to come into a top 5 league and put his stamp on something, on a big club, on a big league out there. I think that this is his coming out party. But we'll see. I mean, at the end of the day, there's so much young talent on that roster that we can pick from. Alina, what about you? Anybody you see as a top scorer, someone that's going to kind of put their stamp on this group?
I was also going to actually say Gakpo, because I mean, he recently got a FIFA card, and I've been loving it. I use it in weekend league. So awesome. I cannot wait to see him.
Yeah, 100%.
I do think as another option, maybe Depay. I think Depay is going to carry the Netherlands as long as he gets the chances.
I like the guy. I really hope he shines, man. He's one of those dudes that I can't really hate, on Barcelona. It's just he's swaggy, bro.
Solid dude. Yeah, he plays with swagger.
Because his rap albums are banger, 100%. Aazam, anybody you get your eye on? I mean, you mentioned already a few really interesting names from Ecuador. Obviously, we don't see guys like Caicedo being like a top goal scorer here, but like I mean, I think he's a hell of a mid, but not pushing forward necessarily. So, is there someone from any of these teams that you think is just going to break out of their shell?
I mean, again, if I had to pick one name, I do think Gakpo as well. But if I'm going to throw out a different name, I think Gonzalo Plata from Ecuador could maybe make a splash as well.
He's pacey, up top and on the outside.
Tricky as well,
yeah.
He's got flashes for sure.
I don't know. Another guy on Ecuador that we forget about, and he's been in the EPL, is Enner Valencia.
Yeah.
Enner Valencia is also like they're just so dynamic. I watched a couple of their qualifying games, and even against teams like Uruguay, who are supposed to be a standout defense, like they made them look childish. I'm telling you, these guys are very creative. They're crafty on the ball, and they play well together. That's the one thing.
That's the big thing.
You can't forget about the process, right? Like trust the process. We always talk about it, and those guys have been together for so long. So that's going to come in handy for them, I think.
You don't need to have like all these giant name players on your roster to make waves. You need a team that buys into an identity, works together cohesively, and is fluid. And I think that Ecuador, I think a lot of South American teams have that. Like Aazam said, if this is an environment that's just a massive leg up from what they're used to, and they're playing well together, you never know. Never know.
And the beauty of it is when you look at the World Cup qualifier, it's almost like a league, right? Because you need points to get out of it and kind of keep your form. Once you get through the group stage, anything can happen when it's a single elimination tournament. And we see it in different sports. You see it in NCAA March Madness. You see it in baseball when it's a wild card MLB matchup. Like when it's a win or go home type of matchup, I would almost rely more on the teams that have played together very well, as opposed to like one guy who's standing out from another team. And so,
especially in international football too. These 100%. Are teams that don't play together very often, and especially for this World Cup, where players are getting released like 10 days before. Normally, in a typical World Cup cycle, you have like 2 weeks of playing friendlies to build up some chemistry. Right now, it's about who can hit the ground running together, and these teams that know how to play together well, I think, will immediately have a leg up on the opposition.
100%. Well, we'll see, you guys. I think for the most part, most people are expecting the Netherlands to go through as the top dog. I think there's going to be a lot of surprises before we get there.
I think so too.
Oh, yeah.
Group B, the one that everyone on this side of the world is absolutely paying attention to. I think, when we think about Group B and England, Iran, the United States, Wales, this is a tougher group than I think most people are giving credit for. This 100%. Is a pretty tough, especially considering, and when I say people, again, I'm referring to most of the American fans that I see on Twitter who feel as though USA should be one of the top 2 to exit this group because they feel like the group is very straightforward. I don't agree with that sentiment. I think that this is a very tough group, not just based on the eye test, but even based on like FIFA rankings. We mentioned before how FIFA rankings aren't the end all be all with team judgments, but nonetheless, if we had to read them down from top to bottom, England at 5, Iran at 20, US at 16, Wales at 19. Those are the most recent rankings, and that puts everyone in this group at top 20 in the world. Very much a group of death-like pool of teams. And so this group could go a number of different ways. I don't think it's as straightforward as Group A, but let's go ahead and talk about it, right? So even England being a top 5 team in this group, with how much they've struggled recently, how many injuries they have coming into this World Cup now, with the recent 55-man provisional squad, which is bonkers as hell, by the way. Southgate has literally started from scratch, I believe, in my opinion, with the roster and trying to figure out how he pieces the right team together. But look, let's kick this off with Aazam, our guest. Aazam, when you look at this group, there's so much to really pick from. But let's start with the biggest nation first, because I think that they are probably the not just the favorites for Group B, but for the tournament. Have the injuries that they've sustained recently, guys like Kyle Walker, right back specifically, Reece James, out of form Harry Maguire, although that might not be a thing anymore.
Calvin Phillips not getting minutes.
Everything that's changed from England, getting to the Euro finals, because they've been progressive, right? They made it to the World Cup semifinal not so long ago. They made it to the Euro finals. This World Cup in Qatar needs to be that step up for them. But with the mixture of injuries, the mixture of players being in and out of form, I don't know. What can we make out of this England squad heading into Qatar?
I think the injuries don't have to be as devastating as they are if Gareth Southgate himself can navigate through them. I think there's some solutions here. I think England has a deep, deep talent pool, but Gareth Southgate's a manager who, maybe for good reason, like we were talking about earlier with ingrained chemistry, he's got his favorites. He likes to, bring people in, even if they're not performing well with their clubs, as long as they're performing well within the team. But part of me sometimes doesn't trust him to find the right solutions. I think he's a decent tournament manager. He's pragmatic, and that will get you results in these, cup competitions. But I don't know. They just don't. I mean, I think we've all watched England recently. They don't really inspire you. I think they should navigate their way through this group. I think they will. Once it gets later on into the tournament, I think he's got to take some creative players. I think he's got to play a bit more expansive, especially in this group, because if you try to play this pragmatic football with England against the likes of Iran, USA, Wales, I think that almost plays into their hand. You should use your difference in quality. He should bring in players like James Madison. He should bring in,
dude. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
but will he? I don't know. I don't know. I think he might rock up with a Rice Phillips, midfield, which is
double pivot.
It has its it has its benefits, but when you're trying to be on the front foot, it's interesting. I think though their quality should be the difference in their group. I worry for them later on as the tournament progresses.
Alina, if the likes of James Madison and let's say Ben White and some of these other English players who are very much in form don't get called up for the national team, and England, for whatever reason, either gets second in the group, or maybe let's say it would be a massive failure if they don't even make it out. But would it be just simply blaming Gareth Southgate for his tactics, for his approach, like Aazam said, where he's very pragmatic and he does have his favorites? Would that be a disaster class all the way around? I don't know how I personally feel about that, but Alina, when you think about those players who are consistently still being left out this close to a World Cup, I don't know, how would you anticipate the reaction from all of the fans on the in the UK and they're cheering on England and expecting England to go far in this tournament?
Yeah, well, the thing is with English fans is they always go into tournaments thinking they're going to win it all and it's coming home and all that, and sometimes that cannot be a good thing because England haven't really done well in the last. Well, they did well, but they didn't perform to the expectations of the fans, thinking that they were going to take it all, they were going to take it easily. Something happened after the Euros, and I don't know what it is, but I think going into the World Cup, if it was shortly after the Euros, then I would have said England have a really good chance of winning. But over the last 3 to 6 months, I'm not sure that's the case. Granted, I did like how they played against Germany in the Nations League. That was a good game. That was the only positive that I can think from like the last few months. That kind of tells me, well, maybe they can do something special in the World Cup.
But even in that game, they've had glaring holes, right? Like very glaring mistakes that they made with this same type of roster that Southgate is consistently called upon for these big matches. What has to change then, Alina? Like if that's how they felt the last 3 to 6 months, is there anybody you'd leave out? Is there anybody you would look to include now? Like what's got to change?
I think that midfield, as you guys mentioned, I think Madison has to come in. I don't know if he will, though. That's the thing. And again, I don't with the whole 55 squad, or 50 or 55.
55 was the provisional squad he just named less than a week ago.
That screams to me that their coach, he has no clue what he's doing. He doesn't know who he's going to take, because I've heard of like 30, 40 squads, but I've never heard of a coach calling up 55 players.
Yeah,
it's a red flag.
Yeah, it is a
red flag.
Yeah.
Is that because of injuries though, Andre, or is it something else? Like is it? Did he see? Okay, Trent's out of form. Reece got hurt. Kyle got hurt.
Walker's hurt.
Like, do I just need to hit the reset button and figure out? People are yelling at me to include Ben White and James Madison. Calvin Phillips has not touched the field in I don't know how long. Like Grealish isn't playing consistently for City. Like, do I have to just hit the reset button now and just figure it all out from scratch this close to the tournament? What's the thinking with the 55-man squad?
I think it goes beyond like anything on the field. I think it's the pressure that the media puts on the manager of the England national team. That is by itself probably one of the hardest jobs ever, because of all these expectations, because it's been since 1966 that you haven't won a major tournament with the talent pool that you have, right? You can talk all you want about EPL being the best league in the world, the most attractive, the sexiest league. Yeah, okay, well, how, does that translate to the national team? It hasn't. Maybe the Euros last year, that was a great run. And to Alina's point, if we were playing the World Cup right after the Euros, I'd say, yeah, England should be at least in the semis. But I don't think it's based solely on your right back getting hurt and his backup and his backup. I mean, you have enough talent pool, all of us know, to not make that call and bring in 55 dudes. Like, it just doesn't make sense. I think it's a larger issue off the field. I think he's getting pressure from all angles, and he wants to make it seem like, oh, I have enough talent and I'm gonna expand my list 30 days before the World Cup so that everybody can see that, yeah, we've got what it takes, and then we'll polish it here and there. He's not going to change his formation. It's going to be a 4-2-3-1. It's going to be pragmatic. Kane's going to lead the line. It just, we know how he's going to play. And so calling 55 dudes it's almost like a mirage. It's almost like, oh shit, like he might change it up. He's not going to do it.
It looks panicky. It looks panicky.
That's what
I'm
saying.
Yeah. It looks like he just realized, like, oh shit, I actually now that my players that I was kind of leaning upon, heading into this tournament are starting to get hurt, or maybe not playing as much for their club teams, and the media is coming down. We all know what English media is like. They hype everything up extremely well and come down even worse. So it looks like he's just maybe trying to please everyone and make it seem like he's including as many players as he possibly can in his line of thinking. But I agree. I don't know if he changes anything up dramatically this close to the tournament.
There's no way.
But he should have been doing this already. In my opinion, he should have already been looking at guys. Way too late to be doing this. I don't know. It's, if it doesn't work out, if it goes as south, maybe if it goes as far south as it possibly can go with this team, they don't make it out of the group. Man, is he sacked, and is England just they're 100% starting from square one. It's kind of crazy to
think about it. But you're gonna have Harry Maguire as your center back.
No, if I see Harry Maguire go to the tournament and he doesn't touch the field again for United before the World Cup,
that's what I'm saying.
Then the bias that Southgate includes with his team, at some point you can have favorites, but at some point it has to make sense. At some point they still have to be touching the football regularly, getting competitive minutes regularly, because that's what tournaments are all about. You need your team to be not just in a fluid rhythm with each other, but just understand what it's like to be in that competitive mode heading into a tournament.
I wouldn't even go that far. I would say that if Ben White is not included in the 26, I'm literally going to be like not watching any England games. Like, that's so bogus and so biased. He can play right back, right there. There's your solution.
Yeah, but look, maybe if he does make these exclusions, doesn't include the people that the players that we think he should include in the World Cup. Maybe it's a leg up for the U.S. men's national team, right? Maybe this is Berhalter's dream, right? Southgate shooting himself in the foot. He's like, I don't have to do anything. He'll tank himself.
The pressure's on him. Yeah,
maybe it gives us, as U.S. fans, the opportunity to go out there and actually get a result or two that springboards the U.S. men's national team into the knockout stages where they should be. But with that said, we've seen recent results. We've seen them be extremely lackluster against teams like Japan, against teams like Saudi Arabia. And those are all teams outside of the top 20. If we're looking purely at FIFA rankings, right? They're outside the top 20, which means that this group will prove to be extremely difficult for the U.S. men's national team. Prospects for USA. Aazam, let's start with you, man. Are you feeling like if you're going to give me a percentage, how likely is it that U.S. makes it out of this group?
I'm going below 50. I'm going 40%. I mean, if we want to go, we were going from one underwhelming manager to another with Berhalter. I know.
Seriously.
Very true.
There's like a plague of underwhelming managers, I think, going into this World Cup. But
100%.
Yeah, it's just, I think Japan to me was a really eye-opening match, especially because Japan has quality. They play quickly, they're technically proficient, and they just outclassed the US. And I think the US has technically gifted players. I think they have, a really good talent pool, one of the best talent pools they've ever had going into a World Cup. I just don't think Berhalter tactically is at the, point as some other managers. I think he can potentially institute a decent defensive system, but I've never seen a Berhalter team unless they're like playing Mexico in a big game, which is what I'll get into a little bit later. But I've never seen a Berhalter team that has wowed me with their, expansive, progressive, beautiful football. But as I said, what those games against Mexico, those three finals we played against Mexico, what it did show me is that this team has belief. I think they have fight. I think when it comes to a big occasion, they can potentially get it done, which kind of harkens back to some older U.S. teams.
Yeah.
But that to me is the silver lining. That to me is the hope. That they really rise to the occasion of a World Cup, especially because they missed out in 2018. But if we're talking about from a purely tactical perspective and, how teams are looking going into the World Cup, I'm worried. I'm definitely worried.
Yeah. Everybody should be, to be honest. This is why I can't. It's hard for me to scroll through Twitter, through football Twitter, right? And everybody knows that there's sometimes just trolls, just to be trolls. There's bad or hot takes just for the sake of making those takes. But with that said, talking seriously about what we expect out of this team, I do think Greg Berhalter is the problem. I think that he is a systems coach, not necessarily a players coach. And what I mean by that is. It's like he's trying to fit players into this romantic system or idea of how he wants them to play. And this is just not that team. And frankly, that's not your job. I'm sorry. That's Eric Winalda said it best on his show a few weeks back when these results came in against Japan and Saudi Arabia. That's just not your job. Your job is to bring in the best talent possible for your nation, and then build a system that complements all of their strengths in the best way possible. Even if it isn't necessarily the football that you think you should be playing, you're playing the football that is going to hopefully equate to as many wins as you could possibly get.
Yeah.
So, that's what national teams need. It's like he's almost forcing his own tactics and system on the players in a way that doesn't complement those strengths. And that's why we see a very lackluster team that doesn't quite match up with what these players are doing for their club teams overseas. And that's what I think the misalignment is, at least for me. Andre and I have talked about this quite a bit. It's great to see those guys like Aronson and Tyler Adams on Leeds United. You see them stand out with their work ethic and how they, prepare for those games, what they put into those matches week in and week out. And it never translates to what we see on the field for US. And I really do think it's a tactics thing. And so much so that I'm not expecting shit from the US, to be honest. If we're just kind of putting it out there, for me, I would almost not even be surprised if they not only did they didn't make it out of the group, but if they got last place in this group, which is so disheartening to really say, because I cheer for Mexico and the US heavily going into these major tournaments. But maybe I don't know, Andre, am I too jaded from previous years? I mean, how far off am I here?
No, I think, going back to Aazam's point, the 3 finals against Mexico last year were kind of, again, like a mirage. It was almost like, oh shit, the US has it. But I'm like, when they get tested, again, especially against the Japan team that is very pragmatic, they're, fluid, but then at the same time, going back to my point, that I was making about Ecuador, those smaller nations that have been playing together and have that progress, and the style of play, when they get tested against teams like that, that's when the true colors come out. And you can't really rely on Captain America to put the team on his back and say, I got this. Stay the fuck away. Or Gio Reyna. These are the dudes that are flashy, but they have to play in a specific system that allows them to be successful. And I don't think Berhalter does that. So no, to answer your question, dude, I'd be, again, I'm a Mexico fan. I'm from there. So it makes me kind of happy to see the U.S. also struggling. But if you're a fan of both nations, I would definitely be worried. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they finish last.
Yeah, so. with a point or something, right? Maybe they draw against against Iran. They think they're going to draw to Wales. They think they're going to beat Wales because it's Wales, and then Wales shows up in epic fashion. Damn speed takes them by surprise, and then you're just you're sitting there how do we get here? How do we get to a point where we may not even qualify?
And the big thing too is there's so much, it's similar to England, but there's a lot of expectation from the media, from the fans, because it's been 8 years. That people are not paying enough attention to that bit. I'm sure Berhalter thinks about it every single day. He probably dreams about it. But it's just a lot of pressure that you already have automatically going into the tournament. And so, all that off the field shit is definitely going to weigh heavy on them, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too.
Who did they play first? Did they play England the day after Thanksgiving? But is that their first match, or?
I think so. So I'm let me pull up the World Cup schedule right now. So I'm pretty sure they play Black Friday, which most of us already have off of work. I think anyway. So I'm locked in for that one. You won't catch me shopping. You won't catch me doing anything. That's 100% what I'm going to be doing. England plays Iran first, actually.
Okay.
So that's literally match day 1 for Group B.
So then they get Wales,
which means that US would get Wales. I think that first match needs to be the tone setter, right?
Yep.
Like it needs to
yeah.
be like
points.
if US is going to have any chance at getting out of this group, you minimum need points, but the ideal start would obviously be maximum points. So, and I don't know where those exactly come from because even the number 9 for the US is still such a giant question mark right now. With how players have been in and out of form. Is it going to be the young MLS star and Jesus Ferreira, or is it going to be someone like Pepe, who's kind of been struggling for form and now bouncing around in Europe a little bit? So
he's doing well at Groningen, though. I think he's had some good matches. But no, I totally agree. The striking position is such a big question mark.
5 goals and a couple of assists. Like he's in the Eredivisie, he's doing well, which is good. Everybody wanted to see that loan work out because Augsburg the first 6 months was just so tough. So again, hopefully, he carries that form in and there's a real competition for that 9 spot. But if there's not a competition and it's just like, okay, we're going to plug in Jesus Ferreira because SC Dallas has done well in MLS this season and we just think he's our most informed forward, I would have real concerns about where the goals are going to come from. But prediction time, Group B. Alina, let's start with you. This one's so tough. Every team inside of the top 20. Hopefully that means that there's some real spicy takes here, but how do you see this one playing out? Who are the 2 teams to kind of get out of this group?
Well, I have to put some positive energy out there, so I'm gonna say USA are gonna come in first.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
Bro, could you imagine?
Amazing.
That would be crazy. I mean, I think the casuals would be. Yeah. 100%.
Wow.
If Alina was right, damn.
I think the more positivity we put out there, the more likely the team is going to do well.
100%.
I also think that England are going to come in third. So there's.
Ooh, okay.
Bro, imagine.
I like these.
Wales goes through
second. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I like that. All right, Andre, give me yours, bro. What do you got?
All right. I'm gonna go with England win the group. They find a way. I don't know why. I just have this feeling that they're gonna make it happen.
They should.
Maybe it's just the optimistic in me. I don't know. I like England. I've always had a soft spot for them. England win the group and then Iran advance. I think the US finish third and then Wales, sadly.
Gareth Bale, no love?
Nope.
That's your boy, though.
What has he been doing for LAFC?
Yeah.
I mean, that team has, to be honest, they're nothing but superstars now. But
I do think Iran go through. I think they're another dark horse that people aren't paying enough attention to just because of previous performances and things like that. But like they're another team like Japan, like Ecuador that can play really well together. They play really solid football. And I wouldn't be shocked if they even advance further than the round of 16. So
yeah, they also consistently qualify for the World Cup, guys. Like they consistently qualify for major tournaments. They're always there. I mean, you have to respect that. Aazam, are you going as far out on a limb as Alina did?
I'm going to England first. I think so. I think that they'll get it done. I'm going Wales second. I think Wales. I think their support is huge. They always have the atmosphere of their matches are incredible. Yeah, I think Gareth Bale is an entirely different player when he plays for Wales. I think he's one of those guys that needs to be clocked in. He's to be he's got to get the light on, and that light goes on when he plays for Wales. Regardless, he'll spend months on the bench for Madrid, and then he'll show up for Wales and score
a hat trick or some shit.
Yeah, 100, or a bike out of nowhere, right?
Yeah,
100%. And I'll actually agree with that too. So no original takes of my own, I guess, for today. But I agree with Aazam. I think England should take this. It would be a massive failure if they didn't qualify, but still a failure nonetheless. They didn't take the group because of just how much quality is in that side and in the country as a whole. And then I kind of agree. I think Wales, their support is insane. Gareth Bale is probably teeing up for this World Cup in a way that Messi's teeing up for it for Argentina. It's almost his sole focus. Club ball is not. It's not that it's not a focus. It's just kind of an afterthought, especially now that I know they're even in playoffs. They're LAFC's gearing up for things, but with us being this close to the World Cup, Bale just has to be probably just fully locked in on Qatar. So I do see England taking it. I see Wales getting second. I see Iran getting third, and I see the US getting fourth. I see them getting maybe a point. It's just so tough, man. Like when there was nothing in those last tune-up matches that made me feel encouraged. Nothing. Yeah. And the only difference between the Japan match and the Saudi Arabia match was that Saudi Arabia wasn't quite as impressive as Japan. That's it. Because the U.S. played exactly the same way. Not a lot of creativity in the midfield. Very static. Didn't know how to play out of the back with the high press. It was just, they looked like they had no identity. And when shit hit the fan, they had no idea where to go with it.
Zero goals in 2 matches.
Yeah, that's all. And both those teams are outside the top 25, and we have a very, very difficult, just off FIFA rankings alone, a very difficult group. So it's just.
I'll be honest. I wish that US would play England first.
Yeah,
because I think tournaments are all about momentum.
Yep.
And England, we've talked about their own struggles. I think the US could catch them flat-footed, and if they did that, they would have built up momentum. Instead, they're playing Wales first, who I think will catch them flat-footed. I think Wales will surprise USA, and then it'll be sort of a downturn from there. That's my prediction, but I mean, I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, yeah, we'll definitely see. Either way, though, guys, a ton coming from these two groups. We all feel pretty good about who's going to advance, who's not going to. But the World Cup always produces fireworks, and we got Group C and D on the agenda for the next episode. So it's going to be great. But moving on from World Cup predictions and into a little piece of news that came through the broader footy world this past week. A giant award that's given out every single year, the Ballon d'Or, always handed out to the world's best player from the previous season. And I don't think anybody could argue at the winner for this past year. Kareem the Dream himself, Kareem Benzema, finishing with the Ballon d'Or. I think he was the clear-cut favorite, probably the most clutch player in the Champions League specifically. But I would say probably for Real Madrid the entire season. He was just so pivotal to their entire system and setup and play. So much so that I think Barcelona's 4-0 thumping of Madrid was solely due to the fact that Benzema just was not there. That's how crucial he is to that team. So immensely deserved. He definitely won the Ballon d'Or. When Andre and I were talking about this award, and the reason I wanted to include it on the show today, we're talking about this award. We always kind of compare and contrast maybe players who could have won it, who the finalists were, who got votes in, who didn't. It's kind of crazy to see this the first year that Cristiano Ronaldo didn't get a single vote. Kind of nuts. With all his drama aside, though, because Cristiano is very much, a drama talking point right now. A lot of players in history who I felt have kind of missed out on this very prestigious award. And I will say, if Benzema had come up maybe even a little bit earlier in his time, he may never have won this award, right? Because, Ronaldo and Messi had just won it in various years for how long now? 10, 15 years? It
was almost 10 years.
Yeah. So when you think about this, right, how many players have missed out on this prestigious trophy solely because those two GOATs have existed in the world of football? You think of guys like in every position, right, down to the keeper, guys like Buffon, guys like Oliver Kahn. You think about I think of my personal favorite, being an Arsenal fan, Thierry Henry getting robbed by Nedved. In that 1 year. And Nedved had a good year, but nonetheless, I kind of want to just talk about it a little bit on the show. All these past seasons in world football, who do you think has been most deserving of it? Just kind of going round table here, that didn't win, and maybe who did win it that year? Let's start with Andre. Is there anybody you see here, man? We've included some of the players in this list, right? Arjen Robben, Ryan Giggs, Neymar, El Pistolero, Luis Suarez. I know you're not a big fan, but the guy was completely insane for those 2 or 3 years for Barca and, of course, for Liverpool. So is there someone on this list? Maybe Leva, of course, right? COVID canceled his award. Is there anybody you see that maybe should have won it that didn't?
I mean, I'll go with you. Thierry Henry, for me, I've been asked this question before, and he's just a dude that, it was lights out, right? I mean, when you think of, the top 3 EPL strikers of all time.
I think he's the best, actually, of all time, in my opinion. I even with Haaland doing what he's doing now, he's on pace for 50-something goals this season. I just think no one did what Thierry Henry was doing back in his heyday.
I don't even think Thierry Henry's just the best striker of all time. I think he's the greatest Premier League player ever.
Yeah,
in terms of what he did in the Premier League.
Yeah. So I would go Thierry Henry as my number 1 clear-cut favorite. Number 2, Lewandowski. He got robbed in that COVID year. They still should have given him something. We were talking about pregame or
almost
pre-show.
60 goals that season.
Dude. Yeah. We were talking about in the pre-show. Even give him a mini Ballon d'Or or something, dude. You gotta reward the guy.
A little pin in his hat.
Dude.
There. Here you go, bro.
Whatever. So Thierry Henry, Levy, and then Luis Suarez. I think that 1 year that he had with Liverpool, he was just lights out when he scored that hat trick against Norwich.
And the Liverpool team wasn't even that great.
And that's what I was going to say. Who else was on that team, right? You're looking at Gerrard. Yeah, sure, he had to slip though, but you know what I mean. His
Slippy G himself, yes sir.
Dirk Kuyt, get out of here, dude.
Hey, Dirk Kuyt was underrated, bro. I thought he was a pretty decent attacker. But yes, I agree with you. I think that Liverpool team was lacking extremely strong pieces, and he was a highly underrated striker.
Yeah. So anyway, those are my top 3.
Alina, we were talking a little bit before the show about seeing some of the non-traditional positions, like be able to win. And I know, Andre, you saw this too back in the day. We saw Cannavaro, win as a center back, which most importantly, it's impressive because even for a center back, he's not like your physical prototype center back. No. He's like 5'10", and it's more like a pivot mid or something. But is there anybody, Alina, on your list that you're like, damn, it would have been so cool to see this guy win it?
Yeah, I honestly would have liked to see a goalkeeper win it, because I'm not sure if we've ever seen a goalkeeper win the Ballon d'Or.
Yeah, like in the 60s, Yev Leshin, the 60s, Russian guy. Yeah,
it's been so long, though.
Yeah, exactly.
I would have. I mean, again, I could argue for Buffon winning it in 2006, but then that would have meant that Cannavaro wouldn't have won it, which is, I don't know. It's like, what is better, a goalkeeper?
Buffon was pretty lights out that year, though.
Yeah, I remember vividly, the only goal that he conceded was an own goal, an Italy own goal, and then a penalty from Zidane.
The PK, the chip.
Yeah. But other than that, I think another good chance would have been for Casillas to win it in 2010 for the World Cup as well. And I guess you could argue for Iniesta for that goal that he got in the final as well.
Yeah, and that's a great point, right? Like the Iniesta one, we were talking about this before the show started. Like, how many? It's the case with a lot of these players. How many times was like Messi or Ronaldo just the reason that somebody didn't win it? That year in 2010, 2011 was the year that Xavi, Iniesta, and Messi were all the finalists, right?
Top 3, right?
Yeah. Barca's front 3, and because Messi's there, everyone just automatically assumes Xavi and Iniesta are just there for show. Like, there's no way you're going to beat Messi in his peak powers under Guardiola. Like, it was just. The guy was, an alien at that point. So, it's so tough to see. What about guys like, I don't know. I love, me being a defender by trade, I love thinking about guys like Cannavaro winning it. But is it kind of almost a crime, Aazam, that guys like Maldini or guys like Sergio Ramos,
Ramos had that one season,
didn't win it? I mean, there's so many defenders. Philip Lahm, did he deserve to win it?
Yeah. I think a lot of it. Yeah, no, the only thing that I would say is, like, I think a lot of it goes to, like, stats as opposed to, a style of play.
Now we're back there. Like, now you think it's more about stats?
Yeah, that's like as of the last decade or so. I feel like it's all about like what you do in terms of like goals, assists, like numbers, right? As opposed to like
Maldini was so clear cut the best defender of all time. Like, it's just.
But
in my opinion, anyway.
What does best defender mean, right? When you're like voting for the best player that year, I agree with you.
It's very much an eye test.
So anyway, that's all I was gonna say. Aazam, back to you.
No, and the Ballon d'Or is also very much like it's media based too. It's who's surging and like their PR. But for me, I'll be honest, I think would be kind of controversial take. I don't mind attackers winning it the most often, just because I think scoring goals is the hardest thing to do in sport. Like when we talk about like goalkeepers, I think like Neuer is probably the best goalkeeper I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
But if Neuer could put 40 goals in a season and it was still as good as he was as a goalkeeper, they'd play him striker. That's just like that's just how it goes.
Yeah, that's fair.
For players that should have won. I mean, Thierry Henry was robbed. Lewandowski was robbed. I know there's like some controversial takes as well, players who should have won it during the Messi and Ronaldo era. I think that was more so like voter fatigue or, winning fatigue. It was like when MJ wouldn't win MVP when he was the clear favorite. People just wanted to give it to someone else. I think Messi and Ronaldo always, they were just so far above. But the players that were super unlucky, like Franck Ribéry could have won it 1 year. Wesley Sneijder was super good too. He had a great claim. I think one of the ones that was kind of sad for me, and I kind of contradicting myself, but I do think the defender that I saw that had one of the best cases to win it was Van Dijk that year that Messi won ahead of him as well. Because he was like technical elegance. One of the most dominant seasons I've ever seen from a center back.
Yeah.
So those are definitely the big ones I think that are unlucky. I think Neymar, if Messi and Ronaldo didn't exist, I think Neymar's star would have shined even brighter. He would have been at the forefront of, some bigger teams, and he probably could have won one as well. I mean, he's got to win that Champions League with a non-MSN front 3. And definitely Luis Suarez as well. Luis Suarez, I think, has an argument to be the third greatest player of his generation, along with, I think, Neymar as well for me. But those are the big ones for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's what everybody also maybe uses, right, to judge some of these players is like, what have they done when they exited a system or a team that maybe strongly favored their abilities, or can they mimic that elsewhere?
Yeah.
Even coaches are held to that standard, right? Pep Guardiola is still to this day waiting for that Champions League title outside of people just say, oh, he won it because he had Messi, right? And Messi was insane at that year, but so was the rest of that 2011
Oh
team.
yeah.
And of course, even Messi at a slightly younger age back in 09 when they won it back then too. So I don't know. I will say Kareem's, performances in the Champions League from this past season were some of the most clutch I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I still will stand by the statement that Cristiano Ronaldo is the most clutch player of all time. I feel like he's had so many of those MJ-like moments talking about MJ. But Benzema, what he did, what in the Champions League specifically in the knockout rounds against guys like Chelsea, Manchester City, PSG, it's just I don't think we'll ever see those moments in that late of the game.
Yeah,
I don't want to say ever again, but it's gonna be difficult.
And at that age too. I think he's the oldest player to win the Ballon d'Or in like decades.
Mm-hmm.
So
modern football, bro. Modern football, man. It's crazy. Like you almost think of like some of the practices and the medicine and the like the regiments that were available to players today, if they were available to players back then.
Yeah.
Would we have seen some late surges in some of these players' careers? I don't know, but it would have been awesome to see. I don't know, some of these players last a little bit longer. Yeah. So we'll see. But with that said, guys, moving on from the footy talk and over to our guest of the day, Aazam Khan, man. I am so glad that you're here. I definitely want to make sure that we talk a little bit about your show, about you, what you have going on. And I think more importantly, mainly because I think you have a very unique footy show. Again, guys, we haven't stumbled across it before. It's literally called Aazam's Footy Show. Yeah. I stumbled across it on TikTok. Mm-hmm. The TikTok experience is not quite the same as the Twitch experience, simply because I think you offer something a little. Granted, it's completely different forms of content, right? But you offer a little more granularity on things like Twitch versus kind of those high level stories that you bring to your TikTok show.
Yeah.
But what I want to do right now is kind of kick things off. The question I always ask to anybody who comes onto the show is very straightforward, very open-ended, no wrong answer here. But again, just want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. Aazam, who are you today?
Who am I today? Today I'm still someone who's football obsessed. I think my football obsession has only grown stronger these days. So, that's always at the forefront of my mind. Who am I today? I'm someone who absolutely cannot wait for the World Cup to start. And I'm someone who would cry if Messi won, because Messi's always been to me the person who's made me fall in love with the game. I'm also I'm engaged, so we're wedding planning, which is fun. That's something that I'm doing. And then
congratulations, brother.
Thank you very much. And then other than that, I don't know. I'm me, man. I'm just working. I'm trying to survive like everyone else right now. It's a busy time. It's a crazy time, and just trying to keep my head above water.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. That's a great answer. So look, guys, again, Aazam's Footy Show. I think it's, it's something that started during the COVID era. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So walk us through a little bit. Because I always find it interesting, right? I feel like this is my first stint or first opportunity for consistent content creation, much like Andre. Alina's been doing it for quite some time on her end with FIFA, right? FIFA's been her vehicle for that. I always find it interesting understanding the motivation for wanting to break into content creation, finding your voice and where you really want to focus a lot of your efforts. So for you, what was it? Was it just COVID? Was it your love for football and just wanting to kind of get something out there in the form of content? What led you to creating Aazam's Footy Show?
Yeah, I think my story is a little similar to a lot of other TikTok accounts that probably grew around the same time. It was mainly, I felt like I was working from home during COVID, and I was working and I was just getting done and I wasn't really doing anything else. I was kind of hanging out in this sort of limbo period, and I was like, I just want to, challenge myself in a different way outside of work, see if I can start an account, see if I can grow something. I've always loved football. I've always felt like I've had, takes that I wanted to get out there, but I think we can all attest to, growing up in America at times, especially I was in rural America. I was one of the only kids who was watching it as much as I was. I didn't really have people to talk to about it who were kind of at that same, intensity in how much they loved watching. So to me, it was like an outlet for me to have open conversations. When I started, I was like in the comments all the time, talking to everybody because I just liked talking about it. But the way I approached it too was there was a lot of people who sort of had this very, casual, persona to them where it's just like hit record. And that's why I kind of did the Aazam's Footy Show. I wanted it to be like a bit more structured, cover like news stories or, always use the green screen, have a visual with me and whatnot. And then, as I went into Twitch, it was kind of more off the cuff, which I liked as well because it was a kind of get to see a different side. But I mean, that was kind of motivated everything. And then I got some traction on a couple of my first videos, which I think motivated me even more. I don't know what would have happened if I didn't. You know, I might have been someone who threw in the towel, which I think I kind of learned a valuable lesson, which is to keep going. When you get that early traction, especially on TikTok, you know, there's been ups and downs at times, but you know, content creation is just kind of pushing through and
grind it out.
It's been fun. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Elena, is that pretty similar to yours as well, right? I imagine your journey as a content creator, right? You get a little bit of traction early on, and you know, the urge to double down on it and be consistent, which I feel like is the key, right? Being as consistent as you possibly can with your content creation. Alina, would you feel like that's pretty, you know, spot on with your journey as well?
Yeah, I would say so. And I highly resonate when what you said, like you live in an area where there's no one talking about football.
Yeah.
And in my case, I live in Michigan, so there's not a very big football, you know,
Community.
group there.
Yeah.
Not even for FIFA, which is one of my favorite games of all time. So I was like, I'm gonna hit two things that I love very deeply, and I'm gonna stream FIFA and I'm gonna talk about football.
Yeah.
So it was a great platform to just kind of you know meet new people and share the love for the sport.
I love it. So Aazam, so with that said, right, you're a content creator now. You've been doing this for a little bit. With the show specifically, what was it like? Because I remember you mentioned right now, you know, having a couple videos that saw a little bit of traction to kind of kick off the career. As you've grown, what's your community been like, right? I always find the community building aspect of it really interesting. As you've learned more about the audience that's tuning in, what's it been like, and how have you kind of iterated on your show as it's gotten bigger?
What I learned about the community, especially, was that there's a lot of people who know what they're talking about, you know, which has surprised me. I'll be honest. I mean, there's definitely some of those comments that are just like mind boggling. Like, where did you come up with that? You know,
I'm one of those guys.
I was going to say, I know one very well.
Yeah, but there's definitely like people want to engage, people watch, and most people, the eye test is strong with people. You know, sometimes I'll make a review on a Barca game and somebody in my comments will be like, this player played really well too. And I was like, I didn't even notice that. But now that I think about that, they played so well, you know, and it's like people are engaging. And for me, that's the community building definitely centered around Barcelona for me as well, because at the beginning, I almost wanted to withhold which team I was supported. I think for the first like 3 months, I didn't even say publicly which team I supported. I kind of wanted to cover things holistically. But, you know, when you have like a shared team that you support, I think that's huge in community building for people as well. Even they don't even need to be fans of the team. They just think, okay, this guy likes Barca, this guy likes Arsenal. I want to know his take. I want to know a fan's take. I want to go in there and talk crap when they lose. You know, I think that's a big thing for community building as well. So that was a big lesson I learned as well, sort of being more upfront with my support for teams, because that was something I definitely withheld at first.
Yeah, and I certain people probably think along those lines too, right? Like in order to appeal to as many people as possible, you want to remain neutral. But I firmly believe that in this day and age, especially Gen Z, right, they want to feel like they're connecting with someone who's relatable, and that part of it is super important. Like I'm sure I say it all the time when I'm meeting with content creators, specifically for those who are going to be coming on board with the GOLZ project. It's like, look, you know, these fans, these new age fans, don't want to listen to Ali Moreno on ESPN FC talk about why Arsenal drew against Southampton today. They want to listen to an Arsenal fan talk about it and what they saw and watch them go through the ups and downs emotionally, right? So all of that is super key in this new age of the internet to really growing a community, and I feel like you've done that really well. What are some of the trolliest things you've seen, considering that it's tough, man. I know just as well as you do. Putting yourself out there as a Barca fan or Arsenal fan, especially considering what the last like half decade has been like for us.
Yeah,
you just gotta get used to like having like just thick skin, man, thick skin. You can't take anything personally there.
Yeah, trolliest things. You know, I'll be honest. I feel like I've been lucky, knock on wood, that my comments haven't been too. People don't come to like, you know, get pissed at me a lot, which is I think nice. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes when Barca loses, I mean, it's horrible. This summer was bad. The finances of Barca was like
the levers.
premium.
God,
yeah,
I'll never live down the levers, bro.
The levers, yeah. And also there was like a lot of, you know, I think a lot of media accounts were like jumping on the Barca financial situation as well. So there was some misinformation that was like rife in my comments, but you do have to have thick skin. Like for me in the beginning, there was times where like I'd want to respond to things, but it's never really that serious for me either, you know? So it's kind of like, I don't know if I responded to a hate comment in months.
Nice.
To me, it's like, let it roll off your back. Cause if you don't, and if those hit you hard, you're gonna have a tough time for sure.
Yeah, it's really tough on the internet, man, because everybody has an opinion. Everybody thinks that they're right, and at the end of the day, like sometimes people just want to get under your skin, like, and that's okay. Like they know what you like, what you don't like, and if they tune in enough, and they just want to get under your skin. I will say, like, at this point, I'm at a stage now with how, just again, this is even like within my family or like certain friend circles with my fandom for Barcelona. I just let things roll off my back now. Now I'm just like, you know what, it is what it is. I'm so used to it that the shit talk will come, and in the moments where we have the opportunity to do the same thing, I'm right back in their faces. And Andre knows, because we banter quite a bit, him being a Madrid fan. So
nice.
Yeah, exactly. So we didn't really preface that. He's a Leeds fan and a Real Madrid fan. So last week was like, he and really I were just kind of going back and forth. Yeah, really fun for him. Not so fun for me, but it's okay. We move. So with that said, Andre, Alina, anything you guys are kind of curious about from Aazam's perspective?
Yeah, I mean, we've already talked about the past, kind of how you got here. We talked about who you are today. What does the future look like for you and the show? Like, are you thinking of expanding it to other social platforms? Like, what's kind of your thought process behind it?
Yeah, I've recently started trying to grow like an Instagram. I started posting some YouTube shorts. I think the next step for me is that I want to, I think if you look at the trajectory of a lot of content creators, how they continue to level up and stay relevant is that they continue to just upgrade the quality of their videos as well. So for me, I want to, have a step up in quality. I don't know what I'm doing with editing personally, so I want to learn more about it and, have more stylized videos, because I like those sort of like narrative aspects to videos as well. I have this mic here, I don't need to just be talking in front of the phone. So it's leveling up that way. And then I want to be more consistent with my Twitch streams as well. The future for the World Cup, I have the first 2 weeks of work off for the World Cup, which is like
nice.
That is really nice, actually.
That's clutch.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to be streaming as much as possible. I'm going to try to do daily reviews of the World Cup. And I'm going to really treat that as a ground to sort of grow the account as well, which is, I think it's going to be rife. The TikTok era, especially football TikTok, which has really grown into a community now. We haven't seen a World Cup happen, so I think this is
first time in TikTok history, man. It's going to be so much content that comes out. Like,
it's going to be great.
That's why Andre and I are talking about it already. We know that we have to do more than just this weekly show. Like, we need to, like, maybe entertain the idea of a live stream going live midweek to talk about reactions to the matches and whatnot. So there's things that we have to plan out, and we'll kind of get there. I'm sure. And Alina's channel is, I see new things in the Discord every day, every week at this point, and I'm sure we're all just kind of ramping up to the point where we know that a lot of content has to come out for this tournament because of how big it actually is. So we'll see, man. But yeah, I think that everything you're planning out for the World Cup sounds awesome. I think before we kind of exit the show, one thing I wanted to and this was with Max as well. I love getting, maybe it's a hot take, maybe it's not, but just some predictions for where every fan's teams are potentially going to finish towards the end of the season.
Sure.
Andre laughs because he knows that I'm a big fan of this, but just for content's sake, right? Let's go Arsenal first and then Barca. I think Arsenal's probably the most tricky one because I don't even know what to expect. I'm living week by week with our team right now. So that's what it feels like. And maybe the World Cup can't come soon enough. Also, maybe the World Cup halts our progress there. Who knows? But do you have any kind of inkling or feeling as to where Arsenal will finish this season?
Second. I'm backing them for second. I think I think they play a beautiful style of football, and I think that they have the ability now to beat the teams that were kind of potential pitfalls for them last season. I do need them to strengthen a little bit in January. I think squad depth could be an issue going forward. I feel like they're always 100% injury away from things derailing. So if they can get some good pieces in, but I like their chances for second. City's just KDB and Haaland. I'm not living in fantasy land where I think we'll keep outpacing them. That's going to be tough.
Yeah, extremely tough. And more importantly, like, they have an insane amount of depth, right? Where we look significantly different between like Europa League and Premier League, right? When you watch this in Europa and some of the depth starts to kind of take the spotlight, it's not as fluid. It's not as attractive of a brand of football. So we do need depth. I would love to see Yuri Tillemans make a foray into this team. I think we need another winger too. Is there someone that you got your eye on that you think we should be bringing in?
If I could, like, someone that I think could be realistically tempted, it would be tough. But I want to see Rodrigo from Madrid. I think that he could be good. Because the only reasoning is because his natural position is left wing. He can play right wing, so obviously he can provide depth. But he wants to play left wing. I'm sure of it. And Vinicius is there right now. You know, and he's got that locked down. So maybe if we could tempt Rodrigo, that would be someone I would love to see come to Arsenal.
I'll do a swap. We'll give you Rodrigo if you give us Martinelli.
That's okay. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. No. Martinelli's so damn good, man. It's so
good. He's underrated. He's underrated.
So underrated. So I think him and Saka are ready to explode soon. I think. I'm hoping.
Yeah. I think I could see a scenario where Rodrigo leaves Real Madrid only if like someone like Mbappe comes over, right? Where if he comes over and becomes that other winger, then it's like,
what am I doing?
Where do I get minutes from? Maybe there's something along those lines, but we'll see. Now, Barcelona, this version of Barcelona, also kind of tricky. I know I said Arsenal is probably the trickiest because of their youth, but this version of Barcelona has been as inconsistent as they come. So, especially the last couple of weeks, is there? La Liga is probably a straightforward prediction, but let's start there, and then we'll go into Europe, which could end up being Europa League, which is fine.
Yeah, La Liga, it's like,
which is fine.
I don't want not Europa League again, man. That's going to be tough.
I'm just realistic at this point.
Yeah, for sure. La Liga's tough for me because I feel like my judgment's a bit clouded by, the Madrid and the Inter result, where I'm really kind of like, I'm less optimistic about the team. But I think if Xavi can, maybe start to rotate some of the old guard in, I think they could still fight for first, but it's first or second. Madrid's just super tough to beat right now. They look like a well-oiled machine when they play, which is so funny because Ancelotti's like anti-positional almost. They're just in tune with each other.
They really are. We talked about it last episode. Their chemistry is just out of this world.
Yeah, so I think it's another second if I'm being honest. But if Barca can, figure out maybe you rotate Busquets a little bit more. The injuries have killed them once the center backs like Araujo comes back, and we're not playing Sergio Roberto every match at right back.
Seriously, bro.
Maybe they can.
It is the most Barcelona thing of all time to sign those players defensively and then for them all to get injured in the international break.
I know.
It's the most Barcelona thing to ever happen. So it's like, it is what it is.
Maybe it's karma, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, that's what some people are calling it. They're calling it karma. They're calling it karma. I think no matter what, one, the idea of karma is hilarious just because we're selling off our own property. That's like saying homeowner who sells their home. Oh, that's karma for whatever happens next to that person. It's a funny idea, but nonetheless, let me ask you about Champions League before we go.
Yeah.
If we stay in Champions League, can this version of this team go anywhere far? And then to piggyback on that, if they drop into Europa League, should this team win it?
Yeah, so I think if they get out of the group somehow, as long as they get those defensive pieces back, I could see them going quarters. I could see them hopefully, maybe nice run to the semis. I don't think they have what it takes to win the whole thing.
I don't either.
I think Europa League, normally I would say Europa League, yes, they should win it, but Europa League's going to be exciting this year. Yeah.
Atletico Madrid probably going to drop in.
Yeah,
Tottenham
Arsenal's already there.
Arsenal's already there. West Ham's already there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so West Ham's conference, Juventus is probably headed towards the Europa League as well.
United,
we are gonna finish in fourth. If we finish third, that's gonna be good.
Against Maccabi Haifa, damn.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. I don't know. It's tough. Wait, so does fourth go down to
no, third? I think goes.
Yeah, third goes to
fourth goes to conference.
No,
fourth. You're done.
Fourth is just you're out. You're done for the year. Yeah.
I thought they fell into a playoff.
Third, you go to Europa. No, that's it.
Tough. Well, maybe not. Alina, you never know. Maybe,
never know.
Maybe there's a way. But I will say, no matter what, Europa League is going to be some heavy hitters. And again, I think it's a symptom of where modern football is taking this entire landscape. But anyway,
I think people are going to be shocked on Thursday nights some days where it's like, or Thursdays for us, that's like, oh, we saw all these great Champions League games. Then on Thursday, Arsenal's playing Barcelona or something like that. It's going to be fun. It's going to be an extra day of fun football for sure. That's the silver lining I'm looking at, I guess.
Dude, seriously, like we have to hang our hat on something, right? But I will say next year, look out for Arsenal to make some. It'd be so great just to see them make some waves in Champions League. And I will say this too. I think it's not strategic. We bottled the shit out of this last season. But this team almost needs to be in Europa League, because if we were in Champions League,
Yeah, it'd be tough.
I don't think we'd be doing as well in the Prem. Like it's just so difficult at that top level of Europe to then, with the depth that we have, make it work and stay at the top of the table in the Prem. It's just I don't know if we'd be there. So you know, ebbs and flows, but I'm totally okay with where we are, at least on the Arsenal side of things. So
yeah.
But Aazam, this was great, man. Seriously, I'm so glad you came on the show. It's always great to get takes. Hopefully, we get you back on pretty soon.
Yeah,
I know you got a ton of World Cup content coming, but before we go, just let's get your quick shout out. I really want to make sure everybody knows where to find you, what you have coming up. So, really quick minute here. Let everybody in the audience know what you got going on and where they can find you.
Yeah, so like I said, more upcoming World Cup content. More, I like to do streams every Monday where I react to the highlights from the weekend. And I'm on all socials: Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok. I'm Aazam's Footy Show. So AAZAMS and then Footy Show. So yeah, you can find me there, and I'll be creating content. So come along, and hopefully you enjoy it.
Yep. Sounds good. And for, just like any other guest that's come on the show so far, guys, you can also going to be able to find him on GOLZtv. So again, Aazam, this was great, man. Sincerely appreciate you coming on to the show. And we're looking forward to the next time. Other than that, Andre, Alina, it's been real as always. And for everybody else who tuned in, please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel, comment below. Let us know what you thought. Plenty more World Cup predictions coming for episodes 13 and beyond. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.